Get your reactions ready. The live portion of the show will begin in just a moment.
Teoscar, a bolt out to center, to the monuments, and it's gone! Teoscar Hernandez!
Today is June 22nd. It's Game 3 between the Yankees and the Mariners, and it was absolutely brutal. Domingo Germán wearing number 0. That is about as much of a chance as he gave the Yankees tonight. My recap, your reactions, coming up next. This is NYY Recaps.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Welcome back, everybody. Hal, if you're listening, this is why fans are mad. This was a tough one. So, if you'll excuse the metaphor, the Yankees quickly imploded tonight. So I feel like another group therapy session is well in order. And I'll tell you what, Domingo Germán should open up a food truck for all the meatballs he was serving up tonight. My God, he had absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. So while the chat is filling up, I've got to tell you, I didn't have a lot of time to write the monologue tonight. We were at the vet for a lot of the evening. Quick update from last night on our poor doggo Cece and the squirrel chasing incident. She's named after a Yankee, and unfortunately, she plays like a Yankee. She's going on the injured list. She tore both of her ACLs. Both of them. So, I remember when we had Joez McFly on, and his dog needed some care. We did a little bit of a fundraiser, and you guys did really well. And I never do this, but if you want to help Cece out, tonight would be a good night to throw up a donation. Or if you're catching this tomorrow or whatever, I've included my Venmo in the description and on the screen. If you want to contribute to helping out Cece, it's going to be a tough go for her. But if not, no big deal. But sometimes giving makes me feel better, and I'm sure that a lot of people feel that way. That being said, this was one of the more unwatchable games that you're going to see if you're a Yankees fan. It was over before a lot of people took their seats or even maybe settled into their couch or whatnot. The crowd was taking no prisoners tonight. They were all over Domingo Germán. They were all over Josh Donaldson. They were all over Giancarlo Stanton, and rightfully so. Those guys sucked tonight. They were terrible. And they were all over the Yankees in general tonight. It was like the Yankees won the series and then just decided they didn't want to play Game 3. And really, they didn't, mostly. Alex, with starting this off, I appreciate that. Alex, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me just get through my little rant here, and then we'll let you guys essentially take over tonight. The energy was bad from the start. The body language on the players was bad. Just had a bad feeling in the stadium. And so I'm just going to give a brief recap of what went down. And it's not too hard to explain. Domingo Germán got demolished. And then we can talk about the game. We can talk about that submarine. We can talk about movies. We can talk about podcasts. Whatever you guys want to talk about. I'll let you guys drive the bus tonight because essentially this game was too awful to even spend much more time thinking about. So Domingo Germán had a tough outing his last time out. You figured he might put it back together today because he's been pretty good lately. He had a 2.20 ERA over 7 starts from May 1st to June 10th. But tonight, for the second outing in a row, he was completely ineffective. Things didn't get much better. As the game went along, he stayed in there and he kept dealing, but they were just hitting everything. You thought tough first inning, 4 runs, maybe he can settle down. Nope, didn't work out. First inning, it was single, hit by pitch, single, double, sac, fly. And before people sat down, it was 4-0. There was the awkward catch in right field on a sac fly by Giancarlo Stanton. And that's the problem with playing him out there. I know that, there's this legend that he hits better and plays better when he's in right field. Problem is he just doesn't move well anymore. He moves like a statue. It's just very awkward. Wong and France both homered in the second to make it 6-0. And they were not cheapies. These were just bombs. He had nothing. It was a one-man meatball production factory tonight. The defense lost focus in the third inning. 3 errors. This was my least favorite inning of the game. Donaldson booted one and then threw it to third to try and get the runner, and Domingo dropped it. And then Rizzo missed one that should have been caught. And before you knew it, it was 8-0. And the Yankees got booed off the field that inning. Got another dono from Lori C. I appreciate that. Lori. Let me get you some sounds. Herman stayed in to give up a couple of more home runs that made it 10-0. And at that point, I kind of stopped taking notes, and I went and hung out with CC for a while. Volpe got another hit and a walk tonight, so even though the Yankees got demolished, he continues to get on base at a much better clip than he did for about a month. He's looking better. I posted a stat from StatMuse over the last 7 games since he had the chicken parm night. He's hitting 273 coming into today's game. And tonight, I think 1 for 2 with a walk, so that's going to go up. IKF came in to pitch the 9th inning. He's now got 3 appearances on the mound, and it's only, as Hal Steinbrenner liked to point out, the 3rd week of June, although we're now into the 4th week of June. And he's already pitched 3 times as a position player. He's got 3 more appearances than their $162 million free agent, Carlos Rodon. And to be honest, his stuff was better than Domingo Germán's tonight. He actually picked up a strikeout. And then, to top it off, he hit a 2-run home run in the 9th. But the Mariners win this one going away, 10-2.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
So here's what we want to do. I want to get your reactions in the chat, but I also want to get, your thoughts on any topic that you guys want to talk about, because this is a group therapy session. You can make it light. You can make it dark. You can, whatever you want to talk about, we will talk about. I don't even know what to say after watching a game like this. It's just awful. There are games like this throughout the course of the season, and we typically hold a group therapy session after each of those games. Parks and Young says the defense was bad. That's an understatement. Everything was bad tonight. Whole game was bad. NYY Radio says, IKF for the belt.
Bing.
Tommy Higgs says, DJ LeMahieu looks washed up. He does not look good at all. He looks horrendous. His swing is slow. He's missing. Wow. Shannon says, CC on the IL, recover quickly so you can get after the squirrels. And then Aaron Boone, Hal, Donaldson, Stanton, Herman, and Cashman. Thank you for the dono. And CC thanks you. I'll tell her about it. Pamela Davis says, all I could hear tonight was the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, this was rough. When I was playing baseball in high school, my coach, the late legend of North Carolina, Pete Shankle, whenever we would have an inning like that, he would start playing the circus music. He would say, dun, 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 dun. Tumpy 2, says, it's time for corporal punishment. Hal needs to get in that clubhouse and whip out the paddle.
Oh!
You'd like to see it. Is Giancarlo Stanton the least athletic, chiseled person you've ever seen? The guy's built like he's cut from granite. But unfortunately, he's about as flexible as granite.
A what?
Next Level Lunatic says IKF should be the Yankees closer. Frankie Baseball says, do aliens exist? That's a great question. I've seen all the whistleblower things recently where people are saying that, people who supposedly would have information are saying that the United States recovered several crashed discs. I've always felt like the universe was too big for it to just be us. I think life is probably everywhere in the universe. I think life is probably like the natural driving force of the universe. I know people hate when I talk about quantum physics, but the collapse of the wave function. So that's something that physicists will talk about, but it's essentially when light becomes either a particle or a wave, it's essentially, from my understanding, because it's observed by some form of consciousness or measured. And to me, it seems like, life seems to be the driving force behind this whole thing. And it seems like an awful waste to put all the life in the universe in one place. I think it's probably been around for millennia on many different planets, and there's many different types of species. But yes, I do think aliens exist. Appreciate that. Stone Cold says, I hope the fans keep booing them. That's how they get the point across. I mean, it's the only thing we can do. Back in the day, they used to throw shit on the field, but they don't let you do that no more. D says, get better soon. CC, hope this helps. Appreciate that. Yoel says, how are we beating Texas this weekend? Look, this team can't get more than 4 or 5 hits a night. So you've basically got to win the way you won yesterday, where you hit like 3 solo home runs. James Anastasia says, the Yankees do not know how to play baseball, period. I agree with you.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Frankie says, where is Jimmy Hoffa buried? So Frankie's the only one asking these bizarre questions. And I would love if we would open it up to everybody. But if you believe The Irishman, the story on Netflix, which was told by, it was from a book called I Heard You Paint Houses, and it was supposedly a mob insider that is supposedly in the know and supposedly killed Jimmy Hoffa. He says that they incinerated him. There are some people that think that he was buried actually at Giant Stadium underneath the end zone. I don't believe that. I think why go through all the trouble of transporting a body? The place where they supposedly shot him was very close to a crematorium. I think the simplest explanation is most likely the correct one. And it's very likely that he was just burned up that very same evening. Like a lot of times the mystery is alluring and not knowing can be a pain in the butt. Like when people were searching for this submarine for the last several days, everybody's in a panic. And then you find out that it was over really quickly and really simply. And it was just a very simple matter of thing was not seaworthy for what it was trying to do. Steve Maynard says, for CC, hoping she gets better. Appreciate that. I'm confident she'll be better, but she's having a tough time right now. And she's going to have a couple of surgeries, and it's not going to be cheap. And, yeah, she's 11 years old, so she's been with us for a long time. She's probably not going to be with us that much longer. We lost Joba the cat during the ALCS Game 3 last year. And that was tough. It was tough doing a post game that night. I take inspiration from Penn Jillette. He's one of my favorite podcasters, but he's also a great comedian, a great magician, a great writer. And he says that the best way to get through something like that is to get your mind off of it. And so he worked on the night his mom died, the night his sister died. He did put on shows in Vegas. So whenever something tough happens, I try and channel that. King Volpe says, it's a tiger shark.
A what?
Tommy C says, I was at the vet too with my 18-year-old cat. She's feeling better. Hope she feels better too. That's a tough thing. I hope it's not serious. I hope she's doing great. That's a tough thing about animals is that we outlive them by a long way. And we've got to be around for the tough years. Let's see here. Squint Eastwood says, if every inning was the 9th inning, the Yankees would be unstoppable. I like it. Frankie says, did OJ do it? I think he did do it. If you're interested in that case, I recommend you watch a couple of things. There's a docuseries called OJ Made in America. And they get really into the details of the case, but also things that he's said behind the scenes. He wrote a book called If I Did It. And, he, I don't know, he just reeks of guilt to me. Now, I know in a court of law, he's technically not guilty, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's innocent. He was found liable for the homicides. I think he probably did do it. I think, again, simplest explanation, was it Colombian drug lords coming after Faye Resnick's friend because she was a drug dealer and owed debts? Or did OJ have a serious brain injury from many years of getting concussed on the football field, and also happened to be a jealous, abusive husband and just snap one night? I think that's the more likely outcome. Richie Rugg says, why are flat earthers so stupid? There's a great line from George Carl. What's his name? George Carlin. George Carl, I think, is the basketball coach. George Carlin said, if you think of how dumb the average person is, you have to understand that half of all people are dumber than that, mathematically. Frankie's feeding all the crazy questions. He says, thoughts on Jeffrey Dahmer? He was a dick. Gaming says, bro, IKF pitching better than Herman. Did Herman even have any strikeouts tonight? I didn't even look at the box score. Like I said, I stopped really caring about this game after it was 10-0 and the Yankees were being no hit. So Herman went 3 innings. He gave up 3 1/3 innings, 8 hits, 10 runs, 8 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts, but also allowed 4 home runs. His ERA is back over 5. Brooklyn says, the good old difference between a particle and a wave. Look, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I don't know about all that stuff, but I watch a lot of documentary. It's something that I'm very curious about. Consciousness, I find to be very interesting. I watch a lot of interviews on philosophers that talk about consciousness. Some people think it's just a product of all the interactions going on in your brain. And some people, the panpsychists, which is pretty much what I am, I think I align with the panpsychists, believe that everything, to some degree, every atom has a certain degree of consciousness. And then the more complex you make it, the more complex and aware the consciousness becomes. And that things like identity and, Derek Lewandowski is a construct. I was named by my parents and, I could rename myself if I want. But the awareness, the baseline awareness, I feel like that hasn't changed ever since I was a little kid. I've learned more. I've, learned how to interact in the world. I've learned about my own body, my own mind. But in terms of my awareness, the base level awareness, it's been there the whole time. And I believe it's there in pretty much anything that has any kind of nervous system or any kind of self-replication, anything that's alive, I think has awareness. Jersey Mike says, if you believe Earth is the only place with intelligent life, you are a narcissist. Can't argue with that. Luis says, get well soon for Cece. Appreciate that. Gator says, did you enjoy The Flash? I loved it. Don't understand all the hate. Get well, Cece. Hal just sank the boat. He doesn't have cheers. Thank you, Gator. So I did enjoy The Flash. I know it didn't do well at the box office. It underperformed in terms of total, box office haul. I know they spent hundreds of $1 million on this and they wanted to bring a lot of money in. I think it'll do well overseas. I think people are a little burned out by the multiverse stuff. And I think they overestimated the impact that Michael Keaton would have. I think that the fact that Ezra Miller is what kids would call problematic, kept a lot of the younger audiences away. I personally think that despite his outside of the business, shenanigans, he's a terrible human being. I think he's a pretty good Flash. And so I enjoyed his performances. There was 2 of them. But if you don't like Ezra Miller, you had to go look at 2 of them on the screen the whole time. And I can understand how that would be annoying. Frankie says, do you like Taylor Swift as much as I do?
Shut up, bitch.
I hate Taylor. No. I have no problem with Taylor Swift. I couldn't name 2 songs by Taylor Swift. David says, for CC, next time we can open a fund so Hal can actually get his yacht. Seems to need it. Best wishes for CC. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Frankie says, The Irishman is still going. That was a long movie. I think it was about 4.5 hours long. We got a few more of these off topic. Luis Gonzalez says, is Tupac still alive? Again, simplest explanation is that he was shot and he died. there's pictures of his autopsy, and one of the cops that I saw a documentary. One of the cops that was there for that said that the pictures you saw in the autopsy were exactly what he looked like, you know. But it's weird that he made all these clues in his songs that he was going to fake his own death and come back, and he named himself Machiavelli, and that's what Machiavelli did. And in one of the videos that he did, he was wearing shoes that weren't out yet, and I think he said something about like the Broncos winning the Super Bowl, which didn't happen until after he died. It was weird. Pamela says dogs are better than humans.
Absolutely. Hey.
Anyway, Stone Cold says, who killed JFK? I believe that it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Acting alone? Now, if you told me there were conspiracies, sure, there's probably tons of conspiracies that don't come to fruition. But as I've mentioned before, if you read Gerald Posner's book or listen to any podcast with Gerald Posner, he really studied Oswald's life in more detail than I think had ever been studied before. And he came to the conclusion that, you know, Oswald could have been in the Soviet Union on the 6th floor of a building in Moscow shooting at Nikita Khrushchev. Like, that's the type of nut he was. He wanted to throw a wrench into government. Now, we got robbed of knowing his actual motive because Jack Ruby killed him. But if you do a lot of like extensive digging on this, you'll find out that Marina Oswald, his wife, believed initially that the look on his face when she saw him in the jail confirmed to her that he had done it. And, you know, quite frankly, he was a nutcase. And nutcases do weird things. You know, nowadays, he might be like a mass shooter. That's the type of person he was, if you think about it. Frankie says, do you remember the 21st night of September? I love that song. That's a great song. Chris says, I'm going to the game tomorrow. Thanks to your code. Appreciate that. That code, NYY Recaps on the Game Time app. Nate says, Volpe looks better, and I 100% agree. Tommy C says, Ohtani is awesome, obviously. He is some team's future $450 million injured list rider, though. I agree. I can't. I think it's going to be more than that, first of all. I'm hearing $600 million from Ken Rosenthal the other day. Laurie C says, do you believe in reincarnation? So I actually did a video about this on my my channel, STREAMSKI. I think that there is a significant possibility that reincarnation exists. They've done some studies at the University of Virginia. It's a guy named, what's his name? Jim Tucker, MD. He heads this story up, or this study up. And he's investigated a lot of these cases from all over the world where kids are born with memories that could only really be of somebody else that they couldn't possibly know about. One of the most interesting cases, there's two of them actually that I think of a lot. James Leininger. He was this little kid. He was, I think, 3 years old. He started having night terrors, and he was saying, little man, or plane crash, on fire, little man can't get out. And he was saying that in his sleep over and over again, and like kicking to get out of a like airplane under the covers, but he was asleep. He was having night terrors. And he was too young to really talk or know much about like airplanes or anything like that. But he developed this really crazy interest in airplanes, and he knew things about it that adults didn't know. And his parents took him to go see airplanes in a museum, and he was like, there was like this thing underneath the plane, and his mom said, that's a missile. And he said, no, that's a drop tank, which is like a industry term for like an extra tank of like either gas or water, whatever it is. And as he got a little bit older, they started asking him questions, more specific questions, when he would spontaneously break out into these discussions. And he would say, I took off from a boat called the Natoma, and I was shot down by the Japanese. And his father started doing research, and there's contemporary records of him doing this research that they've printed out, and it lines up with a time where James was like at a very young age. And he revealed all of these details about the life of a pilot named James Houston. And it just turned out that This guy was the only pilot killed from his boat, the Natoma Bay, which was shot down by a Japanese pilot at the Battle of Iwo Jima. There's another one, a kid named Ryan, who had all these memories of a life in Hollywood, and he made 55 correct statements about a life that he could not have known about a guy named George Martin, I think his name was, who was an old director and extra and all that. Frankie Baseball says, what was in the suitcase in Pulp Fiction? If you believe Quentin Tarantino, nothing. He says it's a MacGuffin, which is a writing device used to move the story along, but the glow made it feel like it was gold. I've heard people say that it's Marcellus Wallace's soul. I think that's interesting. Lori C says, is the hokey pokey really what it's all about? It is not what it's all about. Helping out CC tonight is what it's all about. Again, I'm not somebody who ever asks for donations or ever asks for, I really never even ask for any kind of support other than, support the channel by liking and subscribing and maybe picking up some merch. But this is one area where we could definitely use a little bit of help because this one's going to hurt. So if you have an opportunity, please go ahead and hit that Venmo or donate in the chat to the CC Fund, and we're going to get her back on her feet. Anthony Ribeiro, I think I said that right, maybe Ribeiro? I don't know. Says, sorry if I got it wrong. Eastwood or John Wayne? My favorite thing about John Wayne was that when he had lung cancer, they said they were going to take his lungs out, and he said, take them both out. I don't fucking need them. Richie Rugg says, did you ever walk on the outfield grass at the stadium when the game was over? I did not. I've never been on the field at Yankee Stadium. My family moved from New York to North Carolina in 1997. I had already won a baseball competition that was going to allow me to play at Shea Stadium. So that's the closest I ever got to playing on a major league field. But I never played on a major league field. I played on many minor league fields. FG says, you should become the new Art Bell. I don't know who that is. Doug Rouse says, what is the meaning of life? If you're being serious, what the meaning of life? I think the meaning of life is just to be alive and have experiences. But then, maybe there is no meaning, I read a tombstone once that said, so soon I was done, makes me wonder why I begun. And it was like an infant. And it made me wonder, what's the point of that life? And the suffering that comes from an infant, dying so young. So, I don't know if there is a meaning to life. It could be all random. I don't know. Chris says, do super chats help with your dog? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I appreciate this. And Stone Cold says, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? I go back and forth with this. I say let him in the Hall of Fame, but don't let him manage. But then, again, you think about all the gambling and stuff that's going on in sports now. It feels a little bit hypocritical to treat Pete Rose the way that we do still, Kyman says, is Yellowstone the best show? Yellowstone is a fantastic show. Is it the best show? I don't think so. Best show ever? Probably Breaking Bad. Best show current? Probably Yellowstone. I'll give you that. Anyway. Frankie says, Art Bell was an American broadcaster and author. He was the founder of the original host of the paranormal-themed radio program Coast to Coast AM. I love that stuff. I love it. And we just got a couple of donations in on the Venmo. I thank you, and Cece thanks you. I hope that this got your mind off of the game a little bit. I see we got 5 dislikes. That happens, but let's keep going. Why not? Why not? Tommy Higgs says, Jordan or LeBron? So I've had the privilege of seeing both of them play in their prime. I was very young when Jordan debuted, so I didn't see much of his early career. But that 92 Bulls team, he was unbelievable. 92, 93, that time period. He was absolutely legit. I saw him at the Dream Team Olympics. LeBron is just a dominant physical force. He's excellent, but I would still take Jordan. Lori C says The Sopranos is the best show ever. It's one of the best shows. I definitely loved it. I think the ending kind of hurt it for me. Let's see here. Stone Cold says that Justified is an underrated show. Yes, I love Justified. I'm 5 seasons in, but I've been meaning to pick it back up. I got the whole series on sale several years ago for like $20 or some ridiculous. And great bargain. I binged through 5 seasons, and there's a couple of seasons left, I think, and I just didn't get to them. Joshua Saba says, how much would you pay for Ohtani? I think going more than like $300 million for anybody is a mistake. I mean, even Judge, like, you got to do it for business reasons, but bringing in an outside player for $600 million doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Pamela says, favorite conspiracies. You know, I like the ancient aliens thing that, you know, they came during the pyramids or when the pyramids were being built and all that stuff. I think Roswell is a definite opportunity for a conspiracy. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but I think there's probably aliens out there. Did you guys hear about that one in Vegas a couple of weeks ago where there was something crashing down from the sky and a bunch of people called it in, and then these people called in and said there are these weird beings, these aliens in my backyard, and described them and was very scared, and then like the people disappeared. It could have been a prank, could have been a joke, but it sounded pretty serious to me. Anthony says, sauce or gravy? I call it sauce. Richard says, hope CC gets better soon. Appreciate that, guys. And an Entourage fan. I love Entourage. Entourage is an all-timer for me. An all-timer. And Frankie says he's surprised that I don't like the Sopranos ending. He thought it was genius. It just felt very unsatisfying. I thought my cable went out. Chris says, are you a fan of The Office, or was I a fan? It's funny. Nobody ever says, do you watch The Office? Like, or did you watch The Office? They say, do you watch The Office? Like current tense, not past tense, because everybody who watches The Office will occasionally watch more Office because it's such a great show. Anyway. All right, guys, I am going to call it a night. One more question. Joe Mann says, have you seen Black Mirror? I have. I finished the new season. It is fantastic.
Game over, man. Game over.
We're gonna get out of here.
Frankie says, something crashing from the sky that landed in Vegas was called the Athletics. And there was cop footage. Yes, there was cop footage. They don't show the aliens, but investigating the scene. Thanks, Zachary says, pets are family members. Thanks to everybody who supported CC tonight. It means a lot. I tried to ask you guys for too much, but, you know, it's one of those times where we could use a little help, and CC could use a little help. So thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow, hopefully with better news and a better Yankee game. Good night.
Ball game over.
Most impressive.